One really good tool I have is this tire changer. You can install tires, take tires off. It's got the bead breaker on it, which is this. You stick the pipe down in there, which is this thing, and you push down, you break the bead. Sometimes it might get broken eventually. Maybe I'll have to re-weld it. I remember this thing up here, not the, this unscrews, but this piece, there's a little piece that was welded into this tube, and that came loose. But the only thing I had to do to fix that was I just cleaned it out really good chemically, and I used JB Weld, and it changed a whole bunch of tires ever since that time, no problem. But what I do besides the tire changer, what I'm going to do in here too is I'm going to be putting some new wood on the bottom of it and brace it up so it doesn't wobble around as much, and keep some of these tent stakes on hand, because if you can have this on the ground, you don't want this whole thing spinning. Although usually what I do is I put my foot, I put my foot like over here and keep it in place. And the reason I have the vice grips on here is because when I'm going under the tire to remove it, this thing can turn. So a lot of times I put the vice grips on here to keep this from turning, and works very well. Another thing is I have these motorcycle tire levers, which sometimes you need a little extra assistance to get the tire off the wheel. And when you have those levers, it depends. You know what the deal is? It depends on how old the tire is. If it's a newer tire and it's got soft rubber, it's real easy to work with. If it's a really old tire that's petrified and you're taking it off a rim, it could be a bitch, because the tire is like, I don't know, it's like a freaking rock. The rubber turns into like a rock. It's not flexible at all, and it makes it that much more difficult to get off. And so I got the big screwdrivers and the tire levers from the motorcycle, which helps a lot. And I got this pipe I keep on hand, which can go on the end of that when I'm seating the bead on there. That's for removing the bead, that's for seating the bead. So I can put the pipe on the end of it. Right now I got some longer bolts. I'm gonna put like 2 2x4s on the bottom of this thing and brace it up stronger so it's got a good base. But I have changed. I put new tires on this car with this. I put all 4 new tires on that, I don't know, whatever you call that thing over here, the Suzuki. It's like a Samurai. It's a Jimny 1300 SJ413. It's the same thing as a Samurai, just skinnier. I got snow tires for that blue car out there. They're already mounted. And I put 4 Cooper snow and mud tires plus a all-season spare, all USA made, on that El Camino with this tire changer. And I keep it over here, just under the carport. It's out of the rain. And I don't want to make these too long, because that sticks out too far if I'm rolling. if that sticks out too far from rolling the floor jack through here, it would get right in the way. So it's stable enough, just like this, to work well, because you don't need it. It could be mounted on a pallet, but then it makes it a little more, or it could be mounted on concrete, fine. But you don't really need to do that. This I could just pick up and move it out of the way, and I don't use it that often. Like, I'm not using it every day or nothing, but I do use it. I have used it a bunch of times. This piece here, you gotta sometimes adjust, the pin and the angle when it's coming in. And like when I break the bead on a tire, sometimes I'll tap this in to the bead as it's going down, so it gets a little more leverage. One of these days this might break, but if it does break, we're going to weld it up with all kinds of extra plates in here and stuff. Actually, it'd probably be better to have a piece of, I don't know, I guess if you put a piece in the middle here, it would make it so this thing doesn't do this, but you don't need it to go through here. This would probably be best with a piece of channel iron in here welded to this, because this sometimes twists back and forth. You got to get it on there just right. It's not super heavy duty, but I've never had a problem. I've always got the tires off. It's like the ones that are the bitch, the worst to do, were the ones that were old. They were on the, I mean, I had some tires that were on there from the 1990s, and they were pretty difficult to get off. They were on here for 20 years. And they looked good, but they fell apart as soon as the pothole hit. And it was like, man. So, and, you know, you're supposed to use soap with these things to get them on and off, the rims. What I like using is a little bit of wheel bearing grease, and I'll put it on there real heavy. You're not supposed to put grease on rubber because you can rot rubber. But it really doesn't rot rubber because it's just a thin coat. And I found a thin coat of grease works better than the soap. You know? But it doesn't really attack the rubber, because when you think about it, your car is constantly rolling down the highway or down the road or being parked in parking lots where there's oil spills from engines. And the tires are constantly in touch with oily surfaces. You know, so if you put a thin coat of wheel bearing grease around the bead, it does make it easier. It's better than, it's fat, it's easy, it's not going to really screw up the rubber. I mean, Dad, you know, somebody freaking gig me on that, but. And I put a bunch of like Gorilla Tape over here, so if you put your rim on here, it doesn't, you know, scratch it up. Now some tires, they come off from the back, some tires come off from the front, and depends on what it is, you know. I mean, the easiest ones are the damn steel rims. These fancy rims, man. I'll tell you the truth, man. I've been like, I'm kind of like against all this freaking chrome fancy shit. Because today, even with these steel rims, you get, you know, you can put wheel paint on them. If you put a coat of chassis saver on them, like silver, and you touch them up, if they ever got chipped or something with chassis saver, those suckers ain't gonna rust. Even if they got rust on them, you can touch it up over the rust, because it's actually, it's like paint over rust. Chassis saver, same stuff. I got a gallon of black and a gallon of silver, and I don't know. I mean, it's like every time I look at something, it's like, you know, all these vast improvements. It seems like you can go back several decades and you can get better benefits out of something just using a little bit of ingenuity or something, or just doing a little bit of a modification. Because steel wheels, man, you can. You know, they're strong as crap. You don't have to worry about scratching them too much. You know, like the finish on aluminum wheels, chrome wheels, and all this garbage. You can hammer them out if they get damaged. You know, you can't do that with alloy wheels. I mean, yeah, a little more performance with alloy wheels, but really, yeah, the truth, man. Probably if I ever get another car, probably going to be a 30-something, a 40-something, really simple, old tech, nothing fancy. But I have used this thing a great deal. Right now, I'm just going to spruce it up, put some new wood, brace it up on the bottom, going to paint it red. Probably put a little Confederate flag decal on it, clear coat it. It's been kind of getting hot and heavy on these Confederate stuff. Kind of like it. Guess if it was really super popular, I wouldn't be into it as much, but this thing, it was like, you know, $100, man. I mean, for the amount of times I use this damn thing, it's like I could change a tire out. It's like if you're even gonna go to Walmart and get your tires done, which is supposed to be cheap, you know, and by the time you get in that place and you even get set up with an appointment, I can have the tire changed. It's like, you know, I don't have to bother with this shit. I got the bubble balancer. So, this thing's more than paid for itself. But you know, the other thing I like about this is this. If you got damage on your tire, and say you're in this survival situation, you know, whatever the hell it is, You can pull the tire, bust a bead on a tire, get on the inside of the tire, put a piece of, maybe it's not going to be the best patch in the world, like driving down the highway 80 miles an hour, but say you want to drive somewhere 20 miles an hour or something, you can put it, you can fix split sidewalls, big holes in tires, as long as the rest of the tires like not dry rotted or something, with just rubber patches, rubber cement. You could do it. I mean, it's not designed for driving down the highway, but then if you had to get something going just so you can roll down the road, you got this thing, you could bust a bead on a tire and get on the inside of it, or pull it off and just do a repair where you can maybe drive at 20-25 miles an hour, or if you had, there was other cars around that weren't running or some bullshit, and you can get the tires off of them with this thing, and if you needed some or whatever, you can do whatever you got to do. This thing is great, man. I tell you, I think it's also got a lot of other uses, because it's like that thing where you crush down a bead. Like if I ever needed to like press something out or get leverage on something, it's another tool I got. It could be coming in handy for something else too. But for $100, man, you can't beat this shit. So very happy I got it. I've had it a few years now. Used it a bunch, and it's not that hard to use, man. And the other thing is too, if you take your stuff down to like the place, a tire place, it's hit and miss how good they clean the inside of the rims. Where the tire meets the surface of the rim, where the bead is mounted. Like when I do my own stuff, I clean the crap out of where the beads are mounted. I clean the crap out of the wheels, and if they're steel wheels, they get all rust killing. They get cleaned up, the rust removed, they get good primer, rust killing primer, and get a good coat of enamel on them. And then it's like, and even if you don't have a bubble balancer, you can always use those bead balancers, which works pretty good. You can use them even for passenger car tires, but for truck and small light truck and Jeep tires, those bead balancers are pretty good. Once you put those beads in there, they self-balance as soon as they hit about 10 miles an hour. So you can do that. You want to change out to special valve stems, but I like this thing, man. This thing turned out to be well worth it. And like I said, with those 10 pins, that's where when I fix this, I'm going to paint those boards up and put like a double 2x4 in here. It's going to get all stabilized. The next time I go to use it, I'm going to put those 10 pins so this whole thing doesn't turn, where I don't have to put my foot there and keep it from turning. Because otherwise, it's pretty damn stable, man. You'd be surprised, even just like that, without it being mounted to a pallet or mounted on concrete. It works pretty good. If it was mounted to concrete, I mean, that would make it that much easier to use, but I still don't have that much problem with it like this. And I just pick it up and I can move it over there, out of the way. It's just on the side of the workbench, and it's under this carport thing, and it's out of the rain. And it's been just staying there forever. So, but when I need it, it's there. Definitely well worth it, man. Definitely well worth it.